Hello, chess friends. This is International Master Valeri Lilov, and I apologize for the smaller delay. I had a technical difficulty, so now I think everything is fine with my microphone and with my programs. So thank you for your patience. Today we're going to be talking about Garry Kasparov. To my mind, the greatest world champion of the 20th century, together with Bobby Fischer. He's an incredible fighter, and I really look forward to having him play some more games. I was a witness of his blitz return, so to speak, like earlier this year, where he played against some of the top grandmasters, including Fabiano Caruana and Nakamura in blitz, and it was just so amazing. Like, his game was so energetic. It's incredible to describe the feeling of seeing a legend return even in these quick games and still show that he has it, and he hasn't lost his shape. So it was incredible. But for today, I had the really tough task to pick up on some of Gary's best games, and I'm talking about some games that actually were suggested to me, and the themes that were suggested to me, because there's just so many great games. So I'm going to try and bring my insight on what I think Kasparov utilized during his career, and still keeps utilizing and surprising us even in blitz games, in order to become such a fantastic player. So I'd like to share with you some so-called secrets. There is really no secret in chess, at least not one that we know about. It's all just hard work. But still, there are certain techniques that perhaps bringing some of these technique in motion will help you to realize how big that was. So let's talk about a game that Kasparov played versus Anatoly Karpov. This was a world championship match between two of the greatest players in the world at that time. 1990, Kasparov was a world champion at the time, but still the games of these two titans are still so incredible to me. So I'd like to share with you some key points. And remember, there's a lot of new stuff that you can apply directly in your games from these matches. So this game, Kasparov started with e4. So Karpov continued with e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop b5. Now we're going to go through the opening stage rather fast, because really the opening isn't as interesting. The real pass is all about fast development. White brings out the knight, the bishop, and gets ready to castle. So he does that pretty quick. Knight f6, short castles takes place. The black bishop goes to e7, rook e1. Of course, now there's a threat of exchanging c6 and taking down e5, which forces black to move along b5. And as he moves alongside this move, bishop b3 is met by d6. Now, this is not so interesting, so I really don't want to spend so much time on this. White's plan is to challenge in the middle. Black's plan is to stabilize the center and carry on with his development. So everything is more or less straightforward. Here, white moves the pawn. Black advances the rook. He likes to keep the stronghold. By the way, some of you who might be playing this opening with black, remember that giving away that pawn is either very bad or connected with some very specific theoretical variation. So that's why a lot of people just don't want to have that problem. They would rather prefer to play quietly and even wait a little bit around with moves like bishop f8 and h6 preparatory moves before anything dangerous happens. So white is very flexible. He puts a challenge against the black pawn, moves the bishop. Now, you're probably thinking, why am I going so fast? This is already the middle game. Truth is, it isn't. It's still the opening stage. There isn't really any major creativity here. You can very easily learn that opening yourself too. It's the middle game part where I like to really focus, and it starts in just a couple moves. Black exchanges. As I mentioned, this move could actually cause a lot of trouble to black, because it gives white a full domination of the center with 2 pawns versus 0 pieces. So black moves the knight, of course threatening to exchange this good-looking bishop. This is called the Spanish bishop, the most important piece in the Spanish game in the real pass for white. It's a very important bishop in the longer run, so white would like to preserve it. And now black plays b takes day. So this last move that black played wasn't so good, and yet I think that this was still more or less theory. However, because the middle game really starts here, and the interesting possibilities become available from this point, I think that it's going to be most fair to start with our discussion right now, this moment. What is White's best continuation? Now, I would like to encourage you all to join me through the chat. That would be really good if you can. You can very easily access it on the bottom of the screen, and then tell me what you think White has to do. By the way, I apologize for the quick, like summary for the first 15 moves. I just think that it will be off topic to diverge too much in opening explanation. It's not that important. The important thing is what do we do when we get into this early middle game stage. And so, what's the best move for White? Um, when it comes down to early middle game, a lot of people feel confused, and the reason for this is because when it's about opening, we know we got to develop our pieces. We often follow a pattern, like the pieces are supposed to go towards the center, they're supposed to go out quickly. But when it's about middle game, it's just not possible to follow the idea of just simply attacking. I mean, okay, if the opponent has made a blunder or the opening is just like that, we could attack. But oftentimes we get in a position similar to this kind. No immediate target is present. The pieces are kind of around, and we're wondering what to do. Now, some people say you have to start a plan. Others say you need to think of a target. Third kind of people say you got to make prophylactic moves. Truth be told, all these approaches are very difficult to implement. Why? Because they're general. In chess, there is nothing worse than general advice and suggestion. If you ever hear a general advice without any specific context, you may get more confused than you were before. So that's why you need something concrete, like a concrete idea on what to do in the early stage of the middle game. Now, let's see some of the suggestions people gave. What about b3, you said? Okay, that's an interesting move. I'm not sure why you would like to give away the pawn, but you see, when you're sacrificing, you better make sure that really stands. Like after the exchange and recapture, I'm not as certain of what would you like to do after black does a5. To my mind, this would just really not work. Now, specifically talking about the sacrifice of a pawn, as well as sacrificing any other piece, I think it only works if there's a good follow-up or a good pressure we create. Unfortunately, that just doesn't quite work for White, at least not in this position. So, what do we do? Queen takes a4 maybe. Queen takes a4 is the most logical move. I kind of agree with that. Black would still do a5 to use this pawn as a protector. And then I think we have a slight bit of a problem, given that this queen might become a pretty easy object for black to challenge. I gotta tell you that I'm not particularly fond of the way in how white has 4 pieces on the back rank, and that some of them just can't move, like the knight or the rook or even the bishop because of the e4. Advancing in the middle may be an option, but then think about it. If you open up the position and you're behind in development or just you're backward, that may not pay off really well. With the knight d7 coming with knight c5, I just continue to see white suffering, and that's not a good feel. So what else can we do? Shall we do d5? I got another suggestion like this. Maybe, but more or less this pawn is going to be easier for black to reach, and he could still open up the position pretty effectively. So that just doesn't work either. Okay, we don't have that ability. Okay, well, what do we do? I mean, what's the right way to go? Knight f1? That would be great if our pawn was protected. Kasparov had a different idea. He wanted to focus on something especially important in the early middle game stages. Like when you finish the opening development, it's not really about attacking or making something brilliant. Oftentimes, you have to find a way to just improve or regroup your pieces. That will give you the preparation and good piece connection, piece coordination, as we say it, to set up and then look for a potential attack on a certain area of the board. In fact, you don't even know how or in what way your pieces will get better. That's why you just want to have them on more advanced and capable places. White took on a4 with the rook. The idea was simply to win a tempo while black defends, and then he could do rook a3. So now that rook has a really nice prospect, as if the knight moves away, It can go directly towards g3. It can also go to e3. See, this theme is not very new because, truth be told, I've mentioned it in many other lectures. It's like we don't want to hurry. We want to take the time while the opponent doesn't have any threats and just regroup our pieces so we're prepared for the late middle game stage. Problem is, very few chess players like to use it. Most chess players want to attack right after development, and that does not really work. Unless the opponent blunders something, which could be the case, but if he's a good player, he's going to find a way to counter you. So you better take the time that is often necessary to regroup and set your pieces nicely. So black played rook a6, and what white needs to do is to find out a good way of just managing those pieces that are around and turning them into good players on the king side. I think that's important. But okay, how do we do it? How do we do it? Let's see if I have got any suggestions by you guys. How does white further improve his position? Given that we don't, not that we don't want to attack, that'd be wrong to say. But given that we want to prepare our attack, how else can we make something happen? Mhm. What should white do now? Rook a to e3 or pawn to e5. I think that's actually quite nice. We could advance and then maybe bring the rook over. So, in fact, I would like to tell you that instead of going on with the rook e3 or pawn up to the e5 or something, we just have to regroup. See, that knight from f3 could simply move right back to the h2. Then we can set the rook onto the g3, and then we can challenge him on the g7. Not only that, but then we can also try to set the knight on g4. And the queen, rook, and two bishops are perfect. Step by step, white is able to build up and really get ready. This is awesome. Knight h2 and black played alongside g6 here. Okay, so we're doing great. I mean, the pawn center is perfect. The rook is standing well. So what to do next? How does white get to improve now? Hmm. Take your time. See, I think that we could definitely do the move of rook to g3 in this position in order to advance and possibly push up. We can have e5, we can have that bishop out there and the knight, and that's just excellent. The most important thing is let's bring and build up more pieces out there. So, okay, that's how we just make it work. This is move 19 out there. So, okay, let's go for it. Get the pieces on. Let's move them there and put pressure. Does white do that? No. We actually played alongside with f3. This was the first move that happened. f3, defend the e4, cover the d4 in this type of position, and so this was great. So queen d7 is what black played in this situation, and so what do we do next? How to do this now? Now you're saying, where did the knight in d2 go? Well, it's still there. But it seems kind of weird the way white actually put his own position in place. He has this, like the pawns are strong. And, actually what you have to be thinking in this type of position is different. sequence, something else. What to do now? How to advance, how to bring our pieces up on more powerful positions. Knight d to f1, that's not a bad idea. But you see, we just want to expand. Expanding does not go with backward moves, all right? Expanding goes when you make sure your pieces get to more advanced squares, to more powerful possibilities. And you see, what we're doing in this moment is just we can set the rook on the c3, and then we have the two pawns up. We have the bishop, maybe even the queen comes in. That's a great way to go. Queen to b5, rook c3, and then black plays with the move of bishop c8. So now what we're doing is we just set the bishop on e3. Now I want you to look at the way on how white is gradually performing what I call as setting up and advancing and strengthening his position one move at a time. It's not about tactics. It's not about finding complicated resources. It's just taking this position further and doing it patiently. So how to go on now? Hmm. Knight to g4. Not a bad plan. I love that, actually. If you think about it, you have to always think of the worst placed piece. Starting with it is a great idea. But there's something better that white did. So I'm not going to tell you, so give yourself your best. Now, while you're actually thinking about that, I do like to say that I think if you check beneath the video, there is, I'm just going to send a link as well. Actually, I'm not sure if it's beneath the video, but there is a fantastic discount that comes with this webinar on a brilliant course about strategy and positional play. It is beautiful because it has a lot of grandmaster content and lectures and things that you need to get better at. So I'm just going to send a link. I'm not sure if it's in this description. It's possibly in the description. It's going to be, if it's not now, it's going to be put later on. But it covers a lot of Kasparov's games and ideas and things that you can actually apply. In any case, I will bring it up, which is okay. Here we go. Just send it over to chat so you can check it out. It's only available for like 10 hours or something like that. So if you want to check it out, it's like, I think it covers all the Grandmaster battles and secrets and ideas of preparation that you might take advantage of. It's very, very good. It's called the Grandmaster Magazine. It's fantastic. All right, so let's see. What do we do then? Was rook e2 in this position? Nope. That's not the move. We've got something else played out. So anyone? Queen d2. Queen d2 is a fair move, actually. But I think this is not the very best idea. What we got to be thinking about is something slightly different. You see? Let's take a look and see what else. Bishop e. Okay, so e5 would be good, but this is rushed. Remember, we haven't put the preparation yet. And for those of you who think that maybe the pacing is slow, remember pacing really depends on the opponent. Black hasn't got anything, so why not just use that time in order to gather our pieces and set them in better places? Not d5, no e5. Let's just bring over the forces. Like queen to the c1 was so much better and easier. We have that knight closer. We have the pawn structure up in play. We have the rook and the queen. and we have the advances going against the h6. So this is actually quite good. So queen c1, pawn to the c6. Then what we're doing is knight to the g4 in that position. And you see, in fact, after that knight to the g4, we get, now black will play with the move of knight g8. So let's talk about that. So most of black's pieces are pretty terrible, I have to say, and slightly white got the chance to advance. Now, if you're wondering why doesn't black exchange, well, because of the h file. Certainly, black didn't want to have that h line open, so he chose to pick it back and bring it back. Don't ask me why. That was not a good move from black's side. But anyway, he picked it. He did it. So it's white's turn. He has a good position. Multi-purpose move, absolutely. How do you go by here? What to do next? Hmm. Now we can play with the move of knight takes to d6, and maybe a move like pawn up to the e5. That's a very good thinking. And you see, actually, I don't think that's a good idea. Mm-hmm. What we can do is knight takes h6 is actually a good thinking. e5 is also an idea. But let me tell you this. What's very, very important is what we got to do is advance and attack. And so the very important type of thing, the very valuable idea is let's break, let's attack against him. So what we've got to go for is just make sure we attack, threaten, pressure against him. This is what we are doing in this type of position. We see with the bishop takes to the h7, h6, and you see, in fact, after that, with bishop takes h, bishop takes h, knight takes h, white breaks through. Now, hang on for a second. Now we missed something, right? It's like it was development. Okay, we noted that. Then there was regrouping the pieces. We noted that. Kasparov did it. Then there's breakthrough. I mean, where's the planning and the attacking and everything? You see, sometimes, you see, strategy, you should know, is not a perfect, science. So certain things can be good, certain things are clear, certain things are not. What you need to know that is that sometimes steps are being missed because they're just not necessary. Now, in this case, we missed a major step, which was actually the planning step, the attacking step. So there's no preparation. White just got his pieces forward and attacked directly. And it took a little, just a little bit before the breakthrough happens. Can you do it? It really depends on the position. But I think that you need to understand how that works. So we have number one, development. Then after you finish the development, or at least a major part of it, we have preparation, setting up the pieces on better squares and expanding, as they call it. Then we have planning up and choosing the area or the target you've got. And then we think of a breakthrough or a way to, really move it forward. In this particular case, White did not do the preparation because he saw the opportunity to break. And that was actually quite excellent because in the end of the knight takes h6, knight takes h6, knight takes d6, this is quite brilliant in this position. And in fact, as soon as we do knight takes d, most of black's pieces are horrible. So like, in fact, let me take a look and see. After the move of knight takes d, black is in a pretty bad position. He played queen to the b8 in this moment. And okay, no, I mean, he didn't do it like that. He actually could play with the move of queen to b6. And then there's knight takes to e8 in this moment. We have a fantastic strategy, winning the rook, destroying, and then this is great. So what we do, in fact, after continuing with queen takes d4, king h1, and then black played queen to d8. So what do we do right now? What to play in this position? So we have a good-looking knight, which is being trapped, by the way. So we have no chance to move it towards g7 or f6. And what to do in this moment? Let's talk about this. White's got some good pieces, but he needs to find a way to utilize them. Direct threats are better than slower strategic maneuvers? Yeah, when you can apply them, that's great. But how about bishop f4, you've asked me? Well, I guess bishop f4 would have been good, but this one just works a lot better. It just works so much stronger. Now, naturally, we have to deal with the black threats right now. We've lost a little bit about our initiative and what to do next. Rook takes the c6 is actually quite fine, but then black will just take back with the rook. I don't really think this is going to work. Queen f4? Maybe. Truth be told, we need something better. Now, let's talk about this. What we need to do is you have to actually get your pieces to connect together. This is a very powerful thing to follow. After rook d1, as we bring it, then black plays the move of queen takes to the e8, and then we have queen to g5. So something very powerful now is not only the possibility of rook d8, but we also have the queen to challenge black. And you see, this is really good. We got to attack against the c8, the e8, the h6, one thing at a time. And what's so beautiful about this is just how the pieces work together. Now, don't forget that. The real threats that come against the opponent are only when the pieces work together. So if you want to make the maximum out of the position, make sure that you connect them. Make sure that you are strong enough and that you put the pressure that you need against the opponent. And that is fantastic right now, actually. So that's what we're doing right now. Okay, so after we play the move queen g5, black is just going in trouble. So he has to do the move rook a7, and then after rook a7, we got rook d8 coming up. Queen e6. So white is just doing beautifully with that queen and the rook. And now we have a critical position. Now, let me clarify to some of you what a critical position is. Kasparov was really good at opting the best move out of a critical position. Critical position is a situation in which you have to make a decision, or somebody has to make a decision. And oftentimes this decision turns out to be absolutely devastating, or maybe it's just going to change the position in a tremendous way. Whatever the case is, you feel it. This is something you got to feel oftentimes. This is a critical position. I really need to find a good move so I can continue my play. I can basically get better. How do we do that? Now, let's see, what are your suggestions, guys? Rook h8, what a magnificent mistake. If black plays king takes h8, we're going to take that knight, he'll run, and then we're losing. That doesn't work. So apparently we don't want that. Rook c5, said Bobby Fischer. Yeah, well, I don't know if Bobby Fischer would have played rook c5, to be honest with you, because it doesn't quite add anything up. I think black can do rook d7 and go for the d1 if we don't exchange now. So something else must happen. Rook c5, not bad. Bishop a2 would just give away the bishop. I can see you're actually looking at moves, but you know what's the problem of all these moves right now? They don't do anything. They're kind of okay, but That's just about it. Nothing's going to come out of those moves. No threats, no real problems or pressure versus the opponent. E5 is good, but what is the threat of that? Nope. We need something else coming. Not going to tell you, just keep trying. Bishop d3 doesn't work too because of the rook d7. All those moves are just not going to pay off really well. e5 activates the bishop. I agree, it does. But it's not too strong. It doesn't cause a problem. Now, let's see. You think about bishop a2, but I already talked to you about that. It's not going to work. It's just going to be to take. And I finally got a suggestion. Of course. Do you know what really makes your attack flow? Are you going to say having pressure? Maybe. Maybe thinking about restricting him. That's more or less the same. So yeah, but not really. The only thing that makes your attack flow are the threats, or the possibility to create new threats. What Kasparov wanted in this position was the possibility to play f5, so he can actually open up the black king as well as challenge his queen. So he can realize how many of the black pieces at this point just don't have anything to do. The moment he plays bishop a6, we've got f5 coming out, queen e7, and essentially after queen e7, white keeps the queens. You see, the threats help you to restrict the opponent. On the other hand, the restriction leads to pressure. So you're pressuring him overall. And that gives you the actual time to get results, like to prepare and build your attack to the point where there's no return for the opponent. Now, I want you to understand that you don't have to keep all these thoughts in your mind. Just remember this. The one thing that determines the success of any attack on any level, whether we're talking about Carlsen, Kasparov, Bobby Fischer, or you and me, is threats. If you can't make ones, try to prepare them. If you can't prepare them, think about what you need to do or handle it so that more threats can happen. If you can't do that, then you've got a problem. And that is what you need to know. The attack requires threats, soon or later. The sooner the better, otherwise it may fade. It's like a fire. Imagine a fire. You fire it, and you have to put more wood. You have to put more paper, whatever it is that is actually going to make it fire. If not, well, it's going to fade, and then you have to fire it again. Now, with fire, probably we can do that at any point. But with our attack, once we lose it, trust me, it's not that easy to fire it back. So the problem being is that black blocks us. He plays queen e7. He keeps everything in line, and, well, he's quite all right. Knight g8, e5, and knight d5. F takes g6, f takes g6, rook takes the c6, queen takes d8, and truth be told, actually, white wins. No, I mean, see, just take a look at this. Every single move that white did forced black to stay back. Now, I have a very interesting theory about what makes a certain position to be successful. Now, this is just my theory, but I've seen it working many times. You see, people think to win in chess is really complicated. And while I certainly think it's not easy, in my opinion, winning is based on how much tension you can put to your opponent. Tension means, like, let me give you an example of what tension is. Tension means the possibility to put him in a difficult or problematic situation. And when you do that long enough, you provoke a mistake or blunder. The secret of tension we'll see with the next game of Kasparov, but one thing that you have to understand is that if you're about to win in any position, you have to focus on how to create more tension. Tension will make him to think more and analyze more to, figure a way out. He can't just do his own stuff. Okay, it's like, imagine a boxing match. I mean, if you don't try to punch him, if you don't try to keep him in the corner, he'll punch you back. He will be the one to take it. So we're not talking even about attacking and defense. We're talking about tension. Try to figure out situations or moves or possibilities that can constantly keep your opponent on the edge. Oftentimes, that's achieved by simply bringing your pieces more advanced, like White did in this game. Apparently, after queen takes d7, he was winning. But seeing how Kasparov led his position to that point is very instructive. The opening started in a pretty generic way, but then further on, we see this gradual preparation that he put. Now, people are worried that this is slow. It is, but we can do slow. We like it slow when we have the time. That's the build-up. Remember, chess requires, any strategy requires a build-up. Once you have the build-up, like you figure out the most optimal squares for your pawns and pieces, you get ready. So whatever tactics happen, and oftentimes you wouldn't expect them, you're ready. You are optimally prepared and essentially coordinated so you can manage those possibilities. What White did have there was brilliant, and he was prepared for bishop takes h6. The forcing moves and the tactics, you must always keep them in mind, but oftentimes they don't work because your position isn't ready. When it's ready, you can think about these moves, and when the time comes right, we do them. It's interesting that even after all those possibilities, and even the fact that Black won 2 knights for the Rook, it was still a terrible position because White could create all these follow-up attacks and threats coming that Black just didn't have the pieces or the opportunities to fight back. F4 was brilliant, F5 came up, and the tension was always there. So let's talk a little bit about it. How did this Kasparov make sure the tension stays? By the way, if anybody wants me to send him those annotations, like the game, the annotated game that I just made, please do send me an email. I'm going to save this in a special file. So let me know. I'm going to send you the PGN with all the graphic commentary and everything else. My email, I'm going to just type it in, and my site, you can actually just request directly. So yes, here it is, valeri.lilov@gmail.com. Just ask me to send you the file. You can add your notes from the lecture there, and then put in anything you want and you find helpful. There it is. This is my site, tigerlilov.com. So I see a few questions. I wasn't able to read them while I was talking. Sorry about that. So you said, is tension the same as creating more threats? No. Threats are direct. I threaten your rook and I want to attack it. Tension is like F5, like F4. Does it create the threat? Well, it did, yes. In that case, it serves both functions. But let's see which move does create tension without threat. Let me give you an example. I'm going to give you a very good example with the next game, but let's see. We had a move here that made both. Yeah, here we go. This move puts tension. G6 is under a pretty severe pressure, and White's last move creates a serious tension against Black. It means we're not creating a threat. We're just keeping him back there. We have that tension against him. It makes him to figure out better moves, and he won't always be able to make them. Yes, tension is the potential of a threat being created. You can put it that way too. So how many games should we play every day? It's totally off topic. Thank you for asking such questions. Yeah, well, I guess you can play as many as you like. Just make sure that they're not too many, because then you'll lose the quality. All right, let's have a look at another game that will help you to get a better idea of what tension is, how it's kept, how it's utilized, and more importantly, how it's nurtured. So let's have a look. It was still played by Garry Kasparov and Anatoly Karpov, and it was so cool. So watch out. Here we go. Now, I'm going to copy the notation, and I'm going to paste the notation. And there it is. So Kasparov, Karpov, it was played in New Lyon? Yeah, New Lyon, France. Sorry, my pronunciation in French is terrible. So New Lyon, 1990. This game was played only a couple months after the first one we saw. It wasn't a world championship match, but it was just as instructive, so I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Let's have a look, actually, what happened. So, Kasparov was white. He started with the Spanish game again. Oh, yeah. You know, there was a master, local master, who once used to say that Spanish game or real pass, they're the same thing, is like milking a cow. Basically, you are the one who is milking, and then black is the cow. No offense taken, I hope, for anyone who plays the Spanish game. I've just had a terrible experience with it myself, but it could be because I just don't know it too well. I don't know. I simply have played the Chigorin variation for quite some time, and I've been milked a lot of times. Whenever we speak, it's just not very active. I don't hate it. I just don't think it works for me. I'm a person who likes often active and really good positions to play with, like what white has right now. Black has meh, okay position, I guess. So we played F bishop F6, A4 again. We have the similar idea. So then black tries bishop B7, and then we have knight A3 attacking the B5 pawn. So this is still opening theory. Exchange takes, and then black plays knight b6. For those of you who may be thinking exchanging and knight takes b is possible, think again. The rook on a2, a1 is being targeted, so we can't quite do that yet. So what to do now? Okay, now I want you to think carefully. This is not a simple position. White has a couple good pawns on e4 and d4. Strength is set. And yes, we could definitely go for d5, but see, that is not creating tension. When you make a move like d5, you release the tension. See, when you play that kind of move, suddenly, out of nowhere, your opponent is going to get a perfect possibility to open. And why? Like, why do we want to do this? D5 is going to simply help him to retreat and move away. See, by the way, it's interesting to see all these grandmasters really commenting on their thought process. So I'm going to recommend you again to check the link below the video or just look in the chat. It's like it covers all these games with some of the thought process and exactly how the grandmasters were thinking during the game, which could be an incredible value to any improving player. I recommend you to check that link. It's fantastic, and it's available for a great discount of 50% just for the next few hours. So basically, d5 is just going to help black out with his development. If we do this move, he'll play knight e5. If we trade, he'll take back. I don't think that it's worth it. What we want to do is something else. Bishop to f4, absolutely. It's both active, it adds more pressure to the center, and it's just good. Takes, take. Knight takes a4, queen takes a4. Now white stands really powerful with the pawns in the middle. He's ready to bring out the rook. He's ready to even advance some of those pawns, and things look good. So black played out with a5. He wanted, I don't have any idea what he wanted. He just wanted to be safe. So how would you plan ahead in this position? Let's say that we are standing strong. There's no doubt about that. It was the Spanish bishop. Yeah, you can try. But I guess, did we really have to give it away? Oh, I'm going to cry too. Probably if I didn't know that Kasparov would played it. Yeah, Bobby Fischer just said white exchanged the Spanish bishop. Yeah, if Bobby Fischer said it, I would actually believe that too. No, thank you, Bobby Fischer. Basically, the blind square bishop is the most important piece that white has, and white gave it away to make things simpler and maintain his center. Is that enough? We're about to see. If Kasparov did it, it should be enough. Rook c1. Nope, something else. White did. Rook c1's good. But then black's just going to play knight b4. He's okay. He's going to get active and attack the d3 and everything. Rook c1's good, but not good enough. He'll jump. Knight b5. Let's jump first. Okay. But then he'll play knight b4 and play bishop c6. It doesn't sound too good. Instead of rook on d1, but again, I don't think it's going to do too much difference, really. He'll still jump. No. For e5. advance you're suggesting? How would it help? I don't think that black will even take there. He might even play bishop e7. No, let's forget about that. Something else. You know, if you want to be successful in the middle game, you need to, I mean, as I said, develop, improve your pieces, expand, keep tension. But do you know what's the most helpful thing to do? It's not, so much the idea of tension or development or strengthening. Although these things are very important, and I'd say them, are really good. It's just that there is something else, something that goes beyond these. Now, before I tell you, let me comment on a couple more moves. Knight c2, ring d. Those are all going to be okay for black. You said it. You said it. Look for your worst place piece. That's a fine idea. No. I would tell you that if you want to look for your worst place piece, you might actually want to find the saddest piece, the one that doesn't do too much. But no. Don't think so much about that. Don't look for h3, h4 as you just recommended. Think about very, very good. One of the members said it, like restriction. We got to restrict. Now, that's not always going to be possible, which actually adds even more value to the method. We need to think of a way to restrict, or even the possibility. You know why? Because oftentimes you wouldn't have that chance. And when you do find that opportunity, you grab it. You grab it and you shuffle it in your opponent's face. Bishop d2, a fantastic backward move. I can't believe I lived to see that moment when I actually say in a public YouTube video, I saw a fantastic backward move. But hey, you know what? This was Kasparov. So, these TV commercials when they sometimes say, don't do this at home? Don't do this at home. Nothing specifically about a restriction, just don't go backward. In that particular case, it was good because it took away the b4 and it was really regrouping the piece. But you be careful with those moves. White played d5 right now, and that was actually pretty powerful. It's like a5 is going to be taken down next move. So black played knight b4, takes, and rook b8. So black, I guess, gets the bishop pair. He's going for the b2 pawn. And if we go back, I guess he's planning to do c6 and open up the position. So I'm not so sure if white's pawn is going to stand too well. I mean, he lost quite a bit of potential here. Now, one of you actually just asked, why did not white play just direct bishop g5, or we had to play bishop f4? But because it didn't work. If we did it earlier, first of all, it wasn't it was a very different position. Black wouldn't have played knight b4. He would have just taken our pawn. So you see, that was sort of a regrouping move that white needed to do for that specific situation. Restriction, as I said before, is the most important concept of any positional game. So white did it pretty successfully. It was good to do. Now what? That's a really good position, It's a really good queen. It's really good pawns. It's really good extra material. I mean, you could let's just stop trying to figure out what we're good at. Let's think about a way to really stop black's counterplay. How to do that? Yes, chill. Absolutely. I'm chilling. And knight c4 is possible, but then black would do bishop takes d5. That's not good. Nope. Queen d1? Well, don't take my concept for backward moves that literally. Knight queen d1 is going to be a little off the chess rules, but even queen d2 wouldn't be that good. No, it's just not going to be. You see, those moves really work. The fact that Kasparov did it once does not mean that you can do it yourself too that well. Queen d2, black will just play c6, and then he's threatening to exchange here to attack that pawn. No. Something else. Let's see. Knight b5 or knight c4. Can we do that? I guess you could. But truth be told, if we play knight b5, he'll play c5. He'll challenge us. And then he's going to move his queen right up. He will be pressuring b2. No. We need something better. e5 will just give away a pawn. Thanks for the suggestion, though. Queen c4 will take down b2. Nope. So what did Kasparov do? I mean, pretty much everything seems to give like some counterplay. Well, knight d4, nope, he'll take it. You know, sometimes when you play, you're gonna find yourselves in, I call them impossible situations. And the term I've developed from the situation, that's it's impossible to find a great move. Now, the important thing about these positions is not to find a great move. The important thing is to find the most optimal move. The one that you believe will apply most restriction over your opponent and eventually keep more tension. Now, as Black played alongside Rook b8, White didn't want to go back. He didn't want to, like just advance or risk too much. So you know what White did? Just your move. I just didn't want to tell you that you're right off the bat. So that's why I stole. Process of elimination, sure. So you were right. Whoever suggested Queen c4, you were right. You were absolutely right. You play like Kasparov. Thank you. This is good. We give back the pawn because we're actually going to play Rook a2. And truth be told, the moment Black retreats, yes, he got the pawn back, but then he lost the initiative. Because usually when somebody wins material, he loses something else. He loses the initiative. We got knight b5 coming out. And then after Rook e7 and knight fd4, White's pretty dominating. I think it's just a matter of a move or two. Like after Queen c4, Black saw the fact that a Rook takes to b2 will lose the initiative, and he didn't even take it. I want you to understand that restriction is the very key. So if you're ever playing the endgame, begin with that thing on top of your mind. How do I restrict my opponent? This will automatically bring some thoughts similar to, where's my opponent going to go? What is his plan? What are his threats? What is his pressure? What weaknesses he'll attack? You don't have to think about any of those because it will automatically, subconsciously begin. You're just going to put yourself in a very interesting path. That will take a few minutes, perhaps. But then when you spend those few minutes looking at those possibilities that he may have, believe me, this preparatory process will make a tremendous impact and difference on the upcoming events or the rest of the game. I'm not exaggerating. After the move of Queen c4, Black didn't want to do that. So basically what he did was the move Queen c8. And then after that, White just played knight to d4. Bishop a6, Queen to c3. So look at this. Black has the weakness. He didn't take the b2 pawn. He's got the bad pieces. And the moment he played with c5, White didn't bother. He just exchanged on the c6. Takes, capture, and b4. Now, I want to clarify the point of tension again. Tension isn't the same as restriction. Tension is when we keep the opponent on his toes. When he doesn't know where or how we're going to strike. When he feels that we're holding him a little behind without having anything that concrete. Just we're keeping him a little away. How is it different than restricting him? Well, the restriction is more just than, like limiting certain piece. The tension kind of keeps him his whole position backward. That's what I mean by keeping tension. Right now, after the move of pawn to b4, Black didn't have anything to do. His whole position is put under a serious jeopardy. So Black played h6. Okay, so we have the big weakness in d6, the passed pawn on b4, but we can't seem to win both of them. Does anybody have a suggestion on how White can try to win? How come White is dominating in a semi-open position when Black is a bishop pair? Well, he doesn't have it anymore. He had to push the pawn to move in, but earlier the bishops were quite limited. Rook b1. No, it's okay, but White had another idea. Kasparov was fantastic at exploiting weaknesses. That's, I believe, where Carlsen got his ability. One of the things that you need to understand is that when it comes down to exploiting a weakness, you want to have more than just one weakness. If you have only one weakness available, I know what you're thinking, but it's likely not going to work. You will fail. You need to have at least a couple, because that way you can split the front, and then he is not, due to his limitations, he is not going to be able to play on two sides or protect two weaknesses at the same time. That's what we call is a very important concept, the rule of two weaknesses. Very big idea. So actually what we're seeing is that white can play the move of rook e3. Rook lift, as you just said. Absolutely. With rook e3 available, white is setting up the position for his rook to move in. And then after rook e6, there we have the f3, protecting it all. Rook c8, rook b3. I know what you're thinking. Boring, Valeri. I want to attack. I want to checkmate him. I want to do stuff to my opponent. I don't want to just move my pawns and my rooks and my queen around. This is for the grandmasters to bore me to death. If you have that kind of mindset, I can't really help. But I'm going to tell you that it's important you understand what sort of players you're going against. If you're going against people who are throwing away pieces just back and forth, maybe you don't need that sort of approach. Maybe all you need is good tactics and make sure you don't blunder, so they give up pieces first. But when we talk about the good players, the strong players, and the more experienced ones that don't just throw away pieces here and there, the build-up, even though it may be a little boring at first, is essential. This is very important. It's not just a simple sequence of 2 or 3 moves that help you to win the game. So what white needed to do is just to make sure that black never gets a chance to invade the position. And then after queen b7, white sets the knight right back now through c2, queen e7, and queen to f2. So now, when everything's defended, the knight suddenly comes in. It jumps through the a3 square, queen e5, and now there's rook b to b1. Everything that black has is bad, and everything we have got is good. The rook comes in, then we have the rook coming down to a7, and the knight coming up to d5. So that's pretty beautiful. King is going out to h2, and white just keeps strengthening his position by playing f4, queen d4. Is this really doing something? No. It's just intimidating black more. Really, this is what we're doing. We're not moving to win. We're moving to intimidate. Oftentimes, that's the only way to win. Just take the opponent, in his bad positions and hold him there. The longer you hold him there, the more of a difficult it's going to get, until at one point he's going to mess it up, and then you win. That's what black did with queen f8. He just didn't know where to go. He didn't have anything. Couldn't even exchange that knight because of the discovered attack. So white just keeps moving. Here, takes, rook g6, and queen f5. Attacks the pawn. Then the rook comes down to c7, and that was it. Let's intimidate, and let's keep going. Rook d8, capture, takes, rook c8. You may be wondering right now, is this enough so that we can win the game? Absolutely. The passed b pawn is going to be pretty much impossible to stop, and then we could see it's like if black plays rook f5, we have rook d4. So the game was more or less lost pretty quickly. In any case, I just want to tell you, I mean, the rest of the game really doesn't matter too much. It's interesting to see these points, which involve white strengthening his position in the middle, and then slowly building up by first using the key rule of any strategy, and that's restriction. When you do this, you can make a lot of things without your opponent being able to fight back. That's the sort of setup that is more efficient when you plan. White was able to win a pawn as a result of that, and the concept of stabilizing to make sure there's no counterplay, and then further on, because we have a long-term advantage, further on moving to the second area of the board, it was just so beautiful. Does it take time? Yes, but winning is never easy. Unless as I said, like your opponent blunders everything, we're going to have to work for it. I mean, real hard. And still, it just worked out beautifully. So in any case, I am very happy that I got to show you this game or these couple of games. And, just one of you asked, was F3 really necessary? Wouldn't have to restrict the... Yeah, it did, but it also protected the center. in a very good way. So if you want to play like Kasparov, you want to create a weakness, make tension, use threat to break his position. Easy to say, yeah. Wouldn't you say so? But it's good to see those games and learn a little more. I mean, keep in mind it's complicated to learn to play like that. But again, when you break down the themes and you see what they're all about, it makes it easier. So check out this fantastic Grandmaster magazine, which is offered at a fantastic cheap price for the value that it gets. So you can get inside the Grandmaster mind and learn a little bit more of the way they think or they play or what to do. So check it out. Thank you all for joining me today, and I look forward to talking to you next Saturday. One last thing, don't forget to email me to my email, valeri.lilov@gmail.com, if you want me to send you these game examples, these games, and also you can visit my site, which is tigerlilov.com, and ask me any further questions, or just you can message me there if you want me to send you the games. How about a game with you? Perhaps one day I'll play, but you can actually see me playing on the chess sites like chess.com and others. Now, one more question I got: is restriction really that important? Can we just improve our pieces and prepare for an attack? It's all important. I just mentioned that restriction is what is most missed in games, and yet that is the most impactful concept you can try to apply in your games. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend, and I'll speak to you next Saturday.